Welcome back to Fangirls Over 40. Very happy. Today I am joined by my lovely friend, Veronika, who hails from Czechia. And today her and I will be talking about Fourth Wing, written by Rebecca Yaros. But before we dive in, Veronika, hi. Thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thanks for having me. How exciting.
Yes, it is Veronika's first podcast. We thought since we both read the book, it will be cool for us to sit down and exchange our views. So the way the podcast will be structured is that we will dive into the plot of the first book of the Imperium series. As a recap, there will be 5 of them. We are currently waiting for number 3, which is called Onyx Storm. It is going to be available from the 21st of January in most of the countries. I know Poland will get the book translated into Polish, I think, at some point in February. Once I am done reading the book, I will be doing separate podcasts on that. And there will be a separate podcast on Iron Flame, which is the second book in the series. But for now, we will dive into Fourth Wing, and later on, we'll give you our very honest feedback, very honest review about the book, what we thought about it. The plot of the book, long story short, we are introduced very quickly to the main female character called Violet Sorrengail. We learn that she is a daughter of General Lilith Sorrengail. She has an older sister called Mira and a brother who is assumed dead, and his name is Brennan. So Violet, ever since she was little, she was going to become a scribe, just like her father, who also passed away. There will be a lot of death. Veronika, I think we can agree that there is a lot of death in Fourth Wing pretty much from the get-go. People are dropping dead left, right, and center.
Yeah, isn't there also at the very beginning something like when you enter this college, look to your left, look to your right, probably everyone will be dead when you finished with this one.
Very dramatic.
Optimistic. Yes, very dramatic. Yeah.
Very dramatic. The first couple of pages, we already lost a couple of couple of future cadets of the war college called Baskaya. So Baskaya, and we hope we pronounced the name correctly, because Rebecca Yaros did use Scottish Gaelic for a lot of the names. So apologies if we butcher anyone's name or any of the names of the dragons of places, we apologize. So the college is split into dragon riders, there are scribes, there are healers, and there's infantry, I believe, as well, so soldiers. Dragon Riders is obviously, the cherry of the on the top. And to get to Baskaya, to become the Dragon Rider, like your first task is to cross the parapet. And the parapet claims lives of many, as we very quickly found out. Veronika, I'm not sure if you remember, there is a character introduced to us, first couple of pages. His name, I believe, was Dylan. I'm not sure if you remember him.
Yeah. There's a passage that is explaining how the families are so proud of, the people that are risking their lives in order to even become a dragon rider. Mm-hmm. And this one seems like the first one that the main character is connecting to, but then, you look around you, he's there. You look in the next second, he's gone.
Yeah, I think he fell off the parapet, which poor thing, he was going to propose to his girlfriend once he becomes the dragon rider. So poor Dylan, we lost a good one very quickly. Also, long story short, dragon riders, because it is so elite, they take the best. So there will be a lot of tasks and trials later on. More people will die, surprise, surprise. But dragon riders, they are either volunteers, so someone who really wants to become a dragon rider, or children of the first rebellion, which was led by Fen Ryerson, who is the father of our new favorite shadow daddy, Xaden Ryerson, who is the main male character. And we are introduced to him very quickly from Violet's point of view, who sees him, and obviously from the moment she sees him, she's like, gimme, I want him.
The way he's described, yes, that's obviously what every reader would find, I think, female or male even would find intriguing, and
Now, important thing that we have to mention about Violet, two actually important things. Her hair is a bit different because she has dark hair, but the ends are silver. I think in book 3 it is going to be explained why Violet's hair is silver. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to our dear Violet, Veronika, I'm not sure about you, but I found it so annoying that throughout the book we were kept reminded that she is this little tiny thing. Look at me, I'm so little, I'm so short. So for me personally, that was really annoying. But we also learned very quickly that Violet has this condition. Her joints are quite weak, so she has to be, extra careful. But yeah, I just found that, readers being reminded that the female main character is, tiny little thing every couple of pages. I know she's tiny. Can we move on? I'm not sure if you share my view here.
Yes, it was a bit too much from the very beginning. I think, yes, it's a good point that, she gets introduced with this chronic condition, which I think that's mentioned from her own mother on the first meeting in her chambers or her office, that she has this condition ever since she had this fever when she was I'm not sure if a baby or, toddler. But I said I'm going to look for this a bit deeper. So I found out, and I think many readers who read this book already, they made the connection that the author has the same condition as Violet.
And some of her children, I think, of family members at least, would have the same condition. I think it's called EDS, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it is all about having weaker joints. So I think from awareness perspective, diversity and inclusion, I think Fourth Wing Imperial Series has done a really good job. Don't believe we have seen a lot of main characters having certain disabilities or certain chronic diseases. So I think from that perspective, fantastic job. I just sort of wish it wasn't mentioned so much throughout the book, because we already know this.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I think it's great that this is a part of the narrative that, we learn that this is a daily part of her life. It is part of who she is. And that's great because it's relatable. Many people suffer with this or any other condition, chronic illnesses, mental health illnesses that are invisible. And I think the word invisible is important here because, it's sometimes overlooked. And I think it's great that it might have been done a bit better, maybe, but I'm sure we'll get to those parts. But yeah, it's great that, a hero like this or heroine has representation in the fantasy world as well. Yeah, so well done for this. Now, the execution of it, as I said, I think it could be done a bit better, but we'll get to those parts.
Yes, we'll talk about the writing and everything in between later on. Violet manages to cross parapet. She joins the Dragon Riders quadrant. Surprise, surprise. She is moved to Fourth Wing, and Xaden Ryerson is the wing leader of the Fourth Wing, which means he is the boss, essentially. But Xaden isn't potentially much of a fan of Violet because there is history between the Ryersons and Soaring Girls, which we find out about very quickly because Violet says, your father, Fen Ryerson, killed my brother, i.e. Brennan, and Xaden says, well, your mother captured my father and oversaw his execution. So there is a little bit of a enemies to lovers vibe. Now, a lot of readers do agree that they've never really been enemies to lovers, because throughout the book, until they fall for each other eventually, there is a bit of banter, and she gives him the middle finger quite often and questions his decision and disobeys him. But to me personally, that doesn't really scream enemies to lovers.
No, I think if they were going with the narrative that, okay, this goes beyond our family feuds, then maybe. But they are there for the same cause, or it seems, they are, they're joining forces to fight the enemy, and the War College is supposed to help them. He is her leader, but still they are not fighting against each other. They have the common cause. So I must agree there was never any notion that they are true enemies. I think this goes beyond the family feuds and back to history, but they do not really...
I wouldn't call it enemies to lovers. Like, they were not fan of each other, which is fair enough, but that doesn't scream enemies to lovers to me anyways. But it is what it is. A lot of people will say, but there were enemies, then there weren't enemies, there were lovers, there were this, there were that. Whatever label you want to slap on it, that's absolutely fine. That's up to you. We are just saying that we don't really agree with the label of enemies to lovers, because they were never really true enemies. But we have Violet, who joined the quadrant. She is under Xaden's chain of command. They have classes, focus on finding out more about different kind of dragons and signets, and there are battle briefs, and there is this, there is that. There are more trials, more tasks to be completed. Surprise, surprise, more people die, yes. And then the 1st of October, I believe, that's the date, is the moment when the dragons decide to bond with the riders.
Which is where it gets interesting, because we don't get introduced to any real dragon, I believe, until this point, right? Because they are there, yes.
Yeah, we see them.
But it's not like the dragons interact with the cadets until this point, and this is the reason why, because they have no need.
Yeah, so what happens with Violet during, what is it called? Freshing?
I think it's freshing. The dragon thing.
Yes, the dragon thing. So she overhears Jack Barlow, who I would actually call him the enemy here. So she overhears Jack Barrow and the two other guys saying, let's kill the baby dragon. And Violet's like, no, not the baby. I'm going to save the baby. So she goes after them and sees this beautiful golden dragon. Later on, we find that it's a female dragon called Andarna. Even though she is a dragon, she's quite helpless because she is a baby. So Violet decides to protect the baby against Jack and his little friends. Xaden is there. He sees everything, but as per the codex, he cannot interfere. He did say, I can narrate, but I cannot interfere. We hear him talk, and then his own dragon, Sigel, again, I think that's how you pronounce the name of that dragon. She is this navy blue, very vicious female dragon who apparently only likes Xaden, or tolerates him at least. So Sigel calls for her own mate, a massive black dragon, who swoops in and bonds Violet.
And now, this is the part where it gets a bit messy, where things get interesting for, I think, everyone, but of course Violet, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to remember what the generals said, that, this is the first time in history that it happened, right? So she's so lucky.
She gets two dragons. The baby dragon and the massive black dragon, who is the second largest black dragon in the dent. The first one, I believe, is General Melgrens, who is this main general of Navarian forces. So he has the largest black dragon. Tarn is number 2, and he hasn't bonded with a rider for a few years, and he is a legendary dragon, very powerful, And obviously Violet gets second most powerful dragon out there, plus baby Andarna. And like you said, it is the first time in history that a rider bonded with two dragons, but it was the decision of the Empyrean, which is all of the dragon dens, that she will be allowed to be bonded with both of the dragons.
I think this part from the whole book was my absolute most favorite. Don't get me wrong, the human stuff that can be interesting, but the dragon stuff,
it's more interesting.
Yes, I must say, I really liked. We'll start with the things we like, right? With the pluses. So, yeah, you have the storyline, you have the characters, but the variety of the dragons and their own magic, as it is explained in the book, and their own history. Now we learn that they have their own council, the Empyrean, right?
Correct.
And their own rules. And I really, really enjoyed learning about that, because this is something that, you know, the humans, they are not allowed to even attend. They're not allowed to have any part in that, because, you know, they are nothing to the dragons. Yeah, they need them to unleash the magic and the powers, but I like the storyline. I thought this was really interesting to get a glimpse of, you know, how the dragons can even decide if a human can have two or not.
Yes.
But of course, she gets them both, because she's that lucky.
She's one lucky girl, so she gets two dragons. Now, because Taran is mated with Sigiel, with Xaden's dragon, this is where these two have to find out, or figure it out rather, how they can work together. Because if Violet dies, her dragon dies, the black dragon dies, and that might affect Sigiel and Xaden. Their lives are interconnected, basically. If one of them dies, the other dies. Yeah. So Xaden has to make sure that Violet survives the college. Now, we learned that not every cadet got a chance to be bonded with a dragon, because there were more cadets than sort of like available dragons, let's say. So I think there was somewhere around, oh gosh, I don't want to get the number wrong, but something tells me it was somewhere around 70 cadets that weren't bonded with a dragon. Maybe less, maybe more, I can't remember. So the first few weeks after you bonded with a dragon, that bond between dragon and a rider is not that strong. So if you die, dragon should be fine, and whoever else is connected to you should be fine as well. So Violet gets attacked in the middle of the night by 6 people. Surprise, surprise. Xaden comes in like this dark, avenging angel and kills all of them.
And the way he does it is interesting, because I think this is the second part in the book that we get introduced to his powers, if I'm not mistaken. I think the first time was when there was this meeting under the tree, all the marked ones, as they are called in the book, the children of the rebellion.
Correct.
Yes, but she doesn't really understand what happened, right? Because he was like, then he was there, now he's here. I think he moved super quick or something like that. And she doesn't really get it. But now she's aware that he has this powers, right? And he uses that power because he wields shadows.
Correct.
Which is really interesting. I don't think it's very original, but we do
have a lot of shadow daddies these days, and obviously the OG was Rhysand from ACOTAR series. But yes, shadow powers, we have seen them before. Do we love shadow daddies? Of course we do. But Xaden being the shadow wielder, I think he's the first one in a hot minute to become a shadow wielder. Number one. Number two, he is considered the strongest rider of of the generation. So he is very powerful wielder. I'm not going to spoil anything, even though I wanted to say something, but I will keep my mouth shut because you are still reading Iron Flame and this will be mentioned in Iron Flame, so I will keep my mouth shut about Xaden's powers. Violet gets saved. We get that great line from Xaden that he knows how to, what was it? It was something about the corset. Oh gosh. He knows how to.
Then he knows how to deal with the corset.
Oh yes, that's the one. He knows how to deal with a corset. You were like, oh yes, please undo mine. I never wear a corset, but I can do it for you now. No problem. Who needs the air? I'm just gonna squeeze myself and you deal with the laces. I'm an absolute slut for Xaden, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah, I have no shame about this.
No shame.
I can talk hours about his personality, but he goes straight to the point. You have no shame about your. I
have no shame.
Session,
no shame at all.
Which is okay. That's allowed. And let me just say, at this point, I truly believe that many people or readers were exactly like you, and I think they stayed because of him. They stayed with the story because of how, I'm going to say it, his personality and his whole character that is written well.
That's an interesting point, and I think yesterday when we did the test call, we did say that male characters are more interesting than the female characters. At least in fourth wave. I think they are a little bit better developed and there is a bit more depth.
I was looking at the word to describe the females, right? And I think it's this boss female or this girl boss, bitch. I would say. Girl boss, yeah. And I can't say I really enjoy it because it seems like all the female characters are more or less the same. It's maybe it's a bit objectifying. I'm not sure, but this book is a lot about objectifying the wing leader himself. But I think the male characters have more depth into it. They are not the standard, oppressive males in a sense. The females are not oppressed at all by them. They are these strong, types of females. But still, sometimes it gets a bit bland with them. And I'm looking forward to read more and to see if they develop a little bit more or not. We'll see.
I think when it comes to female characters, the likes of Rhiannon, I think she would be my favorite female character. At least in the first book. I just wish she was a little bit better developed. That is just my personal take on it. When it comes to Violet, safe to say, I tolerated her in the first book. Second book, I wanted to throttle her every other page because she just became this walking contradiction for me in the second book. Spoiler alert, well, too late for that, but anyways, in third book I hope she will be a little bit better, but I'm not holding my breath. So unfortunately, Violet, sorry love. So if it's between choosing who lives, Violet or Xaden, please save Xaden, Rebecca. Kill Violet. Ain't gonna happen, but hey, one can only wish and hope. One
can dream.
Sorry, that was a bit grim.
I have to agree. Again, I think for me, she was a mess. There were pages that were just pure cringe fest for me.
Yes.
She's supposed to be 20-something in the first book.
Very early 20s. Yes, I think she might be 20 or 20. No, she will be 20, I think, in the first book. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe this is, part of I think this is a good point as well to say that maybe I am not the perfect target audience for this book because, don't get me wrong, I've read my fantasy classics, but that was ages ago. And now we have this young adult audience, which, maybe they could be the same age as Violet and maybe they could relate to that thinking or expressions and the way she describes things. But I don't know, there are definitely good moments that she is very, deep and knowledgeable, and she says what she thinks, and she can be very, very clever, and have very clever comebacks, which we all love,
Yes.
and will relate to that if we can, and save it for future use. But there are also parts that just doesn't make sense to me. The way she acts, not the way she thinks, but she acts and how she says stuff. It's a bit too bratty to me. What do you think about that?
No, I do agree that she is a bit of a brat, and later on I think we will see even more of the bratty behavior, because as Violet and Xaden, they get together as essentially, because again, enemies to lovers, right? She slowly but surely demands that Xaden opens up to her and reveals the secrets, and she does learn about, you know, the second rebellion or revolution, whatever they are gonna actually call it at the end of the day, and you know, she demands to know everything, and Xaden's like, well, I can't tell you. He literally says, Violet, this is bigger than you and I, and there are lives at stake. So I cannot give you everything that you are looking for. And, you know, for someone who is coming from military background, you know, mother is a general. Her sister is at least a lieutenant, if not above it. Her brother is military. Daddy was, you know, a scribe. And scribes are supposed to be, you know, very, very clever. Also sort of a part of military force. So coming from military background and demanding all of the answers without, you know, stopping for a second and reflecting and thinking to herself, right, you lead this, you have a lot of people that rely on you, you do have to keep secrets from me for at least safety purposes, because if I get caught and someone invades my mind, they will find out everything, and then I'm putting Xaden, I'm putting myself, I'm putting others in danger, right? So she doesn't really think about it. She just wants the answers.
And I think that's very selfish. I think this is where the writing doesn't really add up. I don't want to attend too much to Violet's own behavior and, you know, flaws in the character, because that's part of it. There's stuff that didn't make sense to me.
No.
And not the way that it developed, but rather how fast it developed between those two.
Fast. Oh god.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now we can talk exactly. And now we can talk about, you know, exactly these issues that they have between each other. But why they have them is because they are coupled very early on.
Too early.
Too early. Yeah. And I was thinking, you know, this author, Rebecca, she's trying to portray the very human love story in a very, you know, magical world, because there are magical elements, and you have dragons, of course. But sometimes it lacks the very human errors, I would say. I don't think people can really relate to a relationship developing, you know, so fast. And of course you will run into all of these issues. There are major trust issues, as we just learned, right? But there's also like communication issues. And
massive.
And at least in the first book, she has a massive imposter syndrome as well. But then Xaden is this like calm, cool guy, you know, but of course he cannot spoil all the secrets. I think this is the cringy part where everybody will get that, you know, like there's no, it's not that deep. Like, I can't tell you everything, love, you know. Yeah. So shall we talk about what we didn't like?
I would say I disagree with people saying it's a slow burn, because it definitely it's not a slow burn. They literally went from I don't really like you, I'm gonna give you middle finger, I'm gonna disobey your orders, I'm gonna even, I don't know, call you names or whatever, to I have to protect you because Violet, if you die, I might die. I don't want to die, so I'm stuck with you, essentially. To the first kiss, which was cute, I would say, because, you know, there was winter and snow was falling and whatnot, so that was a cute moment between the two. To then having sex, because yes, there are, I believe, two explicit scenes, two snotty scenes in the book towards the end of it, give or take, to I love you so much, I can't imagine living without you. So their relationship, throughout a couple of chapters went from don't like you, I'm gonna kiss you, even though that is a mistake because, you are a Sorengal, I'm a Reyes, and we are on two opposing sides of the same conflict, essentially. So I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm still gonna do it, to having sex, to I love you. It happened too fast for me, which I think they don't know each other that very well. And it is becoming very evident in book 2, spoiler alert, because, quite often Violet goes, how can I love you if I don't know you?
Yes, here we go. Yes.
You don't know each other that very well.
Just answered your own question,
Exactly.
that doesn't have to be 5 books. No. but yeah, I 100% agree with this, because yes, if Rebecca waited a little bit more and left something for the 2nd or 3rd book, I think it would be more relatable to anyone who, is of that age, or even older. It doesn't really matter, but have this very complicated characters falling for one another. Of course it's cute, and of course you are there for the smut scenes, but yeah, the trust issues, they really come along.
Miscommunication.
Of course, and yeah, I think you told me many times that, in the 2nd book there are pages that are just about miscommunication, and it's just getting too much.
Oh, the infamous miscommunication trope that we all absolutely hate. So Rebecca did use that trope very heavily in Iron Flame, to the point that I nearly stopped reading the book, because I was like, I am going to magically transport myself into the book just so that I can strangle Violet, because I cannot stand her. I mean, don't get me wrong, Xaden was acting up sometimes in Iron Flame, and I was like, baby, please don't ruin yourself for me, because I cannot stand this. I'm reading this book because of you. But Violet and the miscommunication trope was nearly the end of me. But what we actually haven't finished doing is giving the quick overview of the plot, because and that's fine, because look, Fangirls Over 40 is all about being unscripted and having just a conversation between two friends, talking about things that we like and we don't like. And so I think the last thing, well, we did cover that, Violet and Xaden, they kissed, and then they had wild sex and this and that, and she's falling for him, he's falling for her. I think 2 major points here would be, in terms of the storyline, is that Xaden, Violet, Redog, Dane. Actually, we haven't mentioned Dane. We have to talk about Dane Athos at one point. And then Liam, and we also have to talk about baby Liam. They go to one of the outposts, and Mira, Sorengale, Violet's sister, is there. So they sort of have like this field trip, find out, learn a little bit more about the outposts and war camps and how everything works. Xaden wasn't meant to be there, but he couldn't stay away from Violet, even though they blamed the dragons, that the dragons cannot stay away from each other. But it was in reality probably Xaden and Violet. The outpost gets attacked by the Griffin Riders, who up until that point they are believed to be the enemy, but they are not the real enemy, though, aren't they? The Venom, who are these dark wielders, they are the real enemy, but the Navarian military is hiding that secret that the Venom are back, and they are dangerous, and people are dying. Lands are dying because the Venom drain the power from the ground, from Earth, and the Griffin Riders are painted to be the main villains of the story, which they are not. And then we have War Games, I believe it was, where they were sent somewhere and they were attacked, and they were actually attacked by the venom, and Liam dies, which were all very sad because Liam is this golden retriever, tall, gorgeous, blonde hair, good with the sculpting, and he became Violet's friend / protector in a way. He grew up with Xaden pretty much, and these two are like brothers. But during the fight, Violet's black dragon was going to be attacked, and basically Liam, on the back of his own dragon, they put themselves between wyvern. I never know how to pronounce it.
Same. I have trouble with that, but what? Maybe we can just say what they are.
Yeah.
Which is hard to explain what they even are.
Well, they're type of a dragon, but they have 2 legs. Mm-hmm. That's the main difference between like dragon that Violet or Xaden would ride versus what the Dark Wielders Venons are riding. So I think the proper pronunciation is wyvern, but again,
okay.
I don't know. I think I might be completely wrong, but anyways, that's okay. We move on. So Liam's dragon is attacked, and because these two share a very strong connection, as the dragon is dying, Liam is dying, and we get this quote from him. It's been my honor. And if you listen to audiobooks, there is a moment where Xaden screams, and you were just like, you can feel the grief and the anger in his voice, and I think the voice actor did an amazing job for that scene. It was a very upsetting scene. I know a lot of fans are still recovering from that scene. But as it was upsetting, are we surprised that someone like Liam died?
I think this is something we talked about previously as well. That, yes, it's, of course, you don't wish this to anyone. But, yes, this is the part where it's inevitable that someone from the very close circle would have to go in a very dramatic and, just proper sad way in order for the characters to develop and, for the second or third book even. So, that part was super sad to me as well. The way I forgot the name of the dragon, of Liam's dragon. I'm not sure even. I don't want to butcher the story, but it's a very special name, the dragon. And the way, the rider is dying because of the bond, because it's so strong, and the magic is, the bond is the magic, I would say. Yeah, that's, again, very sad. But yeah, to your point, it's inevitable because, there has to be a drama scene. Yeah. Yeah, simple and as that.
It was predictable, I would say.
Sadly.
Sad scene, absolutely, because Liam was one of the good ones, but to me at least it was quite predictable that he is going to die at some stage. Violet gets stabbed and Slade is poisoned, and to save her she is brought to Arisha. Now, funnily enough, there is a debate how to correctly pronounce Arisha. I'm just gonna keep saying Arisha. It's part of Tyrendor, which is where Xaden is from. So she is brought to the Ryerson house, which essentially is this massive castle palace, basically, and she is unconscious for 3 days. Xaden looks after her, and as he is, studying every breath that she takes, he's worried sick because he has fallen for her. I think it is said that she is pretty much the first woman that he actually fell in love with, even though he had relationships previously. She is the one that he loves, and he's fallen in love with her, and now she might die. So he watches over her. When she opens her eyes, surprise, surprise, Brennan, the big brother, is alive, and he is the one who saved her. Now
the twist.
Even though, without going through Xaden's POV chapters, which there were a few in the book, not all of them were released straight away. I think the copy that I have has the last chapter is set from Xaden's told from Xaden's point of view. But later on, Rebecca released other versions of the book. Some chapters were also available on her website. So I think in chapter 27, when they are visiting Mira in the war camp, there is the same chapters told from Violet's point of view. The same chapter is also being told from Xaden's point of view. And we learn from him that Brennan is alive, and Xaden knows him, and knows him very well.
Yeah.
But end of the book, we learn that Brennan is alive, and he says to Violet, sister, welcome to the revolution. We learned that Brennan had to change his last name, change his appearance just a little bit, and his military rank is lieutenant.
Yes, but
quite high up.
By profession, wasn't he a healer?
And that was his signet. Yes, well, it is his signet.
Because I think this is the part why Violet was brought to Aisha, right?
Yes.
Because there's the reason, not only because it's Xaden's home, but because Brandon is there, and only him.
Brandon, yeah.
Exactly. He's the only one that can look after the poisoned wound that she has.
And he is also very good with poisons. The one thing we haven't mentioned, so when Violet is at the War College, there are challenges, which means anyone can challenge you to a fight. Now, Violet having not a lot of combat experience, some, but not an awful a lot, and being rather breakable, she poisons her opponents. And Xaden finds out quite quickly, because apparently at least to him, it was rather obvious. And he did say to her that I know better potion masters or poison masters or something like that. And he meant Brennan. So Brennan is really good with poisons, and he is a healer. Now, what is also interesting is that we were told throughout the whole book that Brennan died, and the person that tried to save him, Neolin, however you pronounce his name, apparently they were lovers, and Neolin tried to save Brennan, but died in the process from burnout. And that was Taryn's previous rider.
Yes.
But Taryn refuses to talk about his previous rider. There is a theory that the previous rider turned venom. To save Brennan, he had to channel from the ground, and he became the venom.
Forces. So let's just recap what is the Vending and what's the other two-legged dragon thing, right?
Yeah.
Because that was also interesting from the perspective how Violet, her whole life, she basically thinks this is a fairy tale. This is something that she knows from her fairy tale books that her father has given her.
Yes.
And she brings the book with her. And what was the first thing? I think her room is emptied because she's moving to the fourth wing, or, to the dragon college wing, or however we want to describe that, from the scribe quadrant. And I think her sister then saves the book for her, right? So she's reintroduced to her favorite fairy tale stories from her childhood. But her whole life she thought, these are mystical creatures. There's no base in reality for them. And at the very last chapter, we are being introduced to these creatures, and it's not pretty. It's quite, you get introduced to death and, killing and poisoning and dragons in the book. But at the end, you get the proper violence. Sorry for spoilers. The proper villains, I would say as well, because now we learn that exactly. Now we learn that it's not the catbirds or the bird cats, the griffins that are the real enemies, but that the enemy is bigger and darker than we thought, which
and more powerful. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
they've been around like 600 years ago. The venom appeared, but something killed them. So the military has been looking for that weapon. There are a couple of theories what the weapon could have been. We also learned that there is no cure. So once you channel from the ground, once you start becoming the dark wielder, the venom, there is no cure, there is only control. And I believe Violet's mother was looking into it. And one of the healers from college, Nolan, I believe he was looking into the cure, and he informed General Storengel that, we looked everywhere. There is no cure, there is only control.
Which tells you how powerful that force can be to a person who has, control, but there's only so much you can do with that power.
There is also another thing worth mentioning. Once you channel from the ground, once you start becoming the venom, you lose the soul, or at least piece of your soul. It's gone. So there is a certain darkness within you. And the way I like to think about venom is that they are sort of like vampires. So they do need to channel, they do need to absorb the energy, the power in order to live. Now, what's interesting is that Violet, in first book, we do sort of think that she wields lightning, that she's a lightning wielder. But she actually wields pure power, which to someone like the venom is quite enticing.
We haven't mentioned I'm interrupting you, but we haven't mentioned the powers she wields from the two dragons, right? That's also super interesting.
Yeah, we didn't mention that. The theory of the signet is that it answers the need of the rider, basically. So what does Violet need? Violet needs power. So we think she's the lightning wielder, which would sort of make sense because her mother is a storm wielder. So she wields the storms, which Violet always found, certain comfort in rain and in storms. And funnily enough, when she crosses the parapet at the beginning of the book, it started to rain, which there is now the theory that her mother was just very nervous about Violet crossing the parapet. But anyway, sorry, I digress. We believe that Violet is a lightning wielder later on. I'm not sure if it's still in book 1 or maybe it was already in book 2. We find out that she's actually a power wielder. Xaden, who has that need to be, sort of being able to operate in the shadows. Surprise, surprise, he is a shadow wielder. Redog, who is one of my favorite male characters as well, just because he is beyond funny, and I am forever grateful for his comic relief. He is Ice Wielder, which is a quite common signet, but it is also believed that if you are deeply afraid of being burned by your dragon, you will develop a signet that will somehow protect you from the dragon flame. And he is Ice Wielder. So Violet has 2 signets in the first book, the lightning from her big black dragon, and from baby Andarna, she's able to slow the time. And we have seen her use that power a lot, even though it really drains Andarna because, she's the feathered tails, she's the baby dragon, so she's not that powerful. But because she is still a baby, that signet later on actually disappears and she's no longer able to slow the time. So in book 2, there is one specific line that refers to Violet's second signet. In the third book, we are meant to find out what her second signet is going to be, which makes sense because She has 2 dragons, therefore 2 signets. But I think it's also worth mentioning that it is possible for one rider who is bonded only with 1 dragon to develop more than 1 signet. Why? Because if the same dragon was bonded with someone from the family, it is likely that the new rider will develop a 2nd signet or go mad. And there are certain signets that you get to be killed for. So if you are an intrinsic, so someone who can read minds, you're gonna get killed.
And now we could use this to talk about Dane a little bit.
Dane.
We forgot him.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, Dane. We still don't know how to feel about you.
No, but we'll talk about you anyway, because you deserve a fighting chance. And that was really well described how the signets work. It took me some time to understand what it really is, and we don't really get introduced to it until the point that all our friends get dragons and they are bonding, and of course the dragons give them the power, but also there's this interpersonal connection, right? That the dragon can only speak to the rider, and it's like a telepathy. It's a mental connection, which that was another thing that was super interesting to me, because when I'm digressing a little bit, but when we learned that Tyne and Scale,
One
of them, the boss bitch, that the big navy girl, that they are the most powerful bond in centuries. So of course, them 4, not 2, but 4, because now we have also Violet and Xaden, but also Andana, because she's the another of her dragons. Of course,
the
bond
connected.
is exactly the bond is so strong that they are all interconnected in a way that is interesting to learn how it's developing. But back to Dane.
Dane is the childhood friend, and he's known Violet for donkey years at this stage, and they sort of have that crush going on, because when she sees him wearing the black leather uniform, she's like, oh, he has this door neighbor boy type of beauty and whatnot. So we learn that he is a good looking lad, and they are close. They are not romantically close. There is a kiss, which is actually very awkward. But what's interesting about Dane's signet is that he can see recent memories, but he needs to physically touch someone. When it was pointed out, I started to think, gosh, he did touch her face so many times, so he probably looked into her memories quite a lot, which is something that Xaden pointed out, that Dane would absolutely look into your mind, which Violet maybe quite naively thought, oh, he would respect my privacy. But the thing with Dane is that he is obsessed with Codex, and I think he is a little bit brainwashed by his father, who, surprise, is also in the military.
And now that's an interesting development as well for Violet, to learn that her childhood friend whom she rejected in a way because of the awkward kiss you mentioned. Because at that point she's already falling for Xaden. If she realizes it or not, that's the question. But we know what's going on, girl. We can read your thoughts. We can read your mind. You're giving us everything. I think it's a bit of a wake-up call for her to realize that not all my friends are my real friends,
Yes.
I can't be this naive. I really have to be looking over my shoulder a bit more, which I think she's used to it in a way, being who she is and, who her mother is. But still, sometimes some things she does, they are reckless to me. Everybody else is trying to look after her, including Dane. That's, let's give him the credit that he always has her best interest in a weird way. I think he cares about her maybe too much. Maybe babies her a little bit too much. But again, you mentioned he's obsessed with the codex, and I think that is the reason. And it might be because of his childhood or how they were, how they were raised together in a way.
Yeah, I was going to say something else. Oh, yes, the awkward kiss between Dane and Violet. Obviously, Xaden sees it and he goes green with envy. And we're like, yes, we like jealous Wingley. Thank you for that. But also, it made me think, because Dane cocked her face as they kissed. And she was talking to herself in her mind, be like, oh, this is like kissing an uncle or something like that, or a cousin, like it's awkward. Was he able to sense it?
Was this the reason why he turned sour?
I don't know. I mean, I do think he got quite jealous because Violet decided to choose Xaden, and even though Dane is in Fourth Wing and he is under Xaden's command, even though he doesn't really want to be, but it is what it is, Dane sees Xaden as, your father led the rebellion, you are a separatist, you have the rebellion relic, therefore, you are the enemy, you are the dirt, and I hate you for it. And I am on the military side. Military is telling us the truth. Codex is everything. So that really clouded his judgment a lot of times. Also, what I didn't really like about Dane, again, I do know that he was trying to look after her in his own twisted way, but at least a few times throughout the story, he does tell her that, you should try and rejoin the scribes. Go join them.
Yeah, and not only he tells her, but he proper paves her the way, quite literally. Doesn't he bring her downstairs or something? Doesn't he try to, hide her, or I don't know, just do shady stuff, pun intended, in order to to get her from that deadly college? And with time, even though she is this underdog, she is this unlikely hero, she is this weak girl, as we get introduced a lot, and we still get reminded a lot. I think she finds herself being, stronger and stronger each day, and she starts liking who she is becoming. And you have now this friend that is trying to tell you, oh, you don't belong here, which I think everybody was turned off by this at this point with Dane.
Even her sister tries to undermine her. I mean, I remember when they visited her, Mira found out that Violet cannot keep her seat. She keeps falling off the dragon. She's like, what do you mean you can't keep your seat? And then Xaden was actually debating, should I step in, or maybe should I kill Mira because she is being a little bit unsufferable. Xaden sees Violet as someone who is actually very capable, and he doesn't see her as someone who is, this small weakling. To him, Violet is perfect, obviously because he's in love with her, but he does see that, she is trying, she is working out, she is training in combat, and she is becoming better and better and more powerful. But Dane doesn't see that. Okay, so I think in a way that concludes the main plot and a description of some of the main characters that we came across. What I both enjoy and don't enjoy about fantasy is that by page 5, you are introduced to 12 characters already, magic system, religious cult or something like that, and then later on in the story you're like, who is who? Is that a person's name? Oh no, that was actually the cult, wasn't it? Oh no, that's a magic system. So you are being swarmed with all of these characters, all of the information, but that in a way it's overwhelming, but there is certain beauty in it. Our thoughts about Fourth Wing. So we know what we do like. We briefly talked about what we didn't like about the book. Is there anything else that we like and we don't like? So for me, it was a fun ride. Was the writing the best? No. I don't really understand people who say, oh no, this is my Roman Empire, this was a masterpiece. I don't see the book as an absolute masterpiece. To me, a masterpiece means Lord of the Rings. Fourth Wing is not at that level. Having said that, was it a fun ride? Yes, it was. Will I continue reading the books? Yes, because of Xaden and because of the dragons. There are some characters, Violet, that I don't really care about, but for the Shadow Daddy, I will power through it. So overall, I think out of 5, without Xaden, I will give it a 2. With Xaden, I'm gonna give it 3 out of 5 stars, which might be a little bit too generous because, again, the writing wasn't the best. It wasn't the most original storyline ever, but that's fine because I think you and I had the discussion before that it is just so difficult to come up with something so unique that has never been done before. But overall, it was a fun ride. Will I recommend the book to someone who likes romantasy? I think so. With a couple of disclaimers, but I think I would. What about you?
Fair points. Let's see. Did I enjoy reading the book? I did enjoy myself reading it. I did like to be honest, when the dragons start appearing, that was it for me. In a sense that, the fun starts now.
From that point.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Rating, difficult. Okay, we can talk a bit about the writing itself, because if I take it separately from the storyline, again, I don't think I'm the target audience for this book. We have to be fair and say that Rebecca Yarros, the author, she is a romance author, isn't it? Her previous books where, there was just pure romance. I think she is a military wife, or let's say spouse. I think I've read somewhere that she started her career in writing about, her own life in a way, how it is to live with a military man or husband or spouse or, So this is her first fantasy book. The story is not original. It's lacking. There were parts where, again, there was just pure cringe fest for me. Some things were just nonsense. Some bits didn't add up. It could be better. It could be, I want to point out, it could be shorter. And I know that the second book is even longer.
It's a chunky girl. She is a chunky girl. But I think we are being introduced to more history, more politics, more places. Now, it was edited out because I think originally it was even longer. It is still very, very, well, I don't want to say very long because I've read chunky books, but the sheer size of it, it's, she's a big girl. Iron Flame, I know that you are reading it, so I don't want to say too much. I've read it. I powered through it quite literally. I will be doing a separate podcast about it, again, with my very honest feedback, and then Onyx Storm, I will be able to read through it quite quickly. I'm waiting for the Amazon delivery. It's meant to be with me from the 21st. I've actually already read the first 3 chapters because they were leaked. I'm not proud of myself, but I was like, I'm tempted. I just need to know that Xaden is somehow okay. So I read 3 first chapters. The writing hasn't really improved. Most of us do hope that Onyx Flame will be, not Onyx Flame, what am I saying? Onyx Storm will be better than Iron Flame in terms of the pacing, in terms of the writing, and we won't have a lot of the miscommunication trope, because I think a lot of us were just fed up with it in Iron Flame. And so here's to hoping. I think we can agree that Fourth Wing, we would, generally speaking, recommend the book with a few disclaimers, because again, it is a fun ride. Yes, it is cringy. Yes, some things don't add up, at least right now. We will see if anything makes more sense later on, because apparently Rebecca is quite clever with spilling some beans here and there, and then boom, by book 2, by book 3 you will find out why something happened back in book 1, and you are like, oh, it makes sense now by book 3 or book 4 or something like that. So we will see. It was a fun ride. It was enjoyable. We like Xaden. We like the dragons. So I'm excited to read Onyx Storm. I'm excited for you to finish up Iron Flame. I will be even more interested in your review of Iron Flame. Who knows, maybe we'll do yet another podcast on something else. Maybe it will be Anthem, maybe it will be something else. For now, I think we'll park the podcast here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next episode will be on Iron Flame, I believe, then Onyx Storm, and then I will be recording more stuff about ACOTAR since I have finished reading all 5 books. If you are in Dublin, myself and Beth will be in Dublin next weekend for the con. So if you see us, please come and say hi, have a chat with us. Maybe you will be on our MegaCon podcast. Who knows? So, Veronika, thank you so much for joining me. It was great catching up. Great podcast. Very good points. Thanks a lot. And here's to the next one.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. I had such fun talking about these topics with you. And yeah, I'm now reading the second book. I am invested by this point, so I will continue with the story, just to see if we were, I don't want to say right, but yeah, I just said it. If we were right about the writing. But overall, again, it was a fun ride and I will continue reading it. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me here.
Absolutely. Everyone, thanks a lot and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.